The anime begins with a scene where a boy named Takatou causes chaos in a research facility. Takatou possesses a dangerous ability. He can destroy anything just by thinking about it. Years later, Takatou lives as a normal high school student. During a school trip, something strange happens, and their group is transported to another world. However, Takatou is asleep and doesn't notice what had happened. When he wakes up, Takatou finds himself with Donora, and there are casualties around the bus. Despite the danger, Takatou remained calm and started playing his game console. After the chaos settles down, Donora explains that their bus went through a tunnel and bringing them to this unknown place. Shortly after, a young woman named Sion came up to them and said that she had summoned them to compete for the position of sage. As candidates, they were given a special power, called the gift, to help them develop their abilities. However, some students didn't get the gift because of their poor statistics. After that, the students with gifts were told to go to the capital on the mainland for a task, while the others without gifts would be used as the dragon bait so the rest could leave safely. After that, some of the students getting killed by the dragon. Takatou and Donora were among those without the gift. In the present, despite knowing this, Takatou seemed more worried about his console battery than anything else. He didn't seem to care about the other problems, since he had already defeated the dragon before. Not long after Takatou got off the bus, where 3 students came back to check the situation. Upon seeing them, Takatou realized that they had evil intentions. When one of them saw that some of the student was still alive, he demanded Takatou give Donora to him, saying he'd use his fire magic if Takatou didn't agree. But Takatou showed he had much stronger power than that student, where Takatou could make 2 of his enemies there to die just by saying it. As the result, the enemies had no chance to surrender or trick him. Scared of the same fate, the remaining student named Hanakawa bowed to Takatou, while asking for forgiveness. But Takatou and Donora weren't ready to forgive him yet. Hanakawa even put on a slavery necklace on himself, but Takatou still couldn't trust him. After that, Takatou told Hanakawa to go into the forest full of monsters alone after he gave up all his stuff, while Takatou and Donora continued their journey. Shortly after, Takatou and Donora arrived at the nearest city. When they met the guards, Takatou asked for directions to the capital. But the guards were rude to him, so Donora quickly moved him away, afraid that Takatou might get angry and kill the guard. While walking in the city, a girl came up to them, saying she wanted to be friends with the people competing to be sage. She offered to show them around without any hidden plans. Upon knowing this, Donora went to go shopping with the girl, so Takatou cautiously agreed, though he was suspicious at her. Surprisingly, the girl turned out to be part of a gang of criminals who wanted to rob them. They targeted people they thought were weak and could be sold for a lot of money. When Takatou realized their plan, he calmly said he'd eliminate them all, starting with the ones at the back and those trying to run away. He immediately punished each member of the gang until the girl regretted getting involved with them. Shortly after, the guards accused Takatou and Donora of the killings, but both of them said they were innocent and didn't have the gift, so they were let go without any charges. When they got to the inn, Takatou asked Donora to share a room, but she wasn't sure, so they got rooms next to each other instead. While Donora wondered why Takatou wanted to share a room, her guardian spirit named Mokomoko suddenly appeared. It turns out Mokomoko had been there since Donora first came to this world and had been involved in Donora not getting the gift. Also, Mokomoko wanted to teach her the martial arts passed down from Donora's ancestors. The next day, Donora looked very tired after not sleeping well, but they decided to keep going to catch up with their classmates. Since they arrived at the inn, a staff member had found out where their classmates were. Additionally, they also got information about the way to the capital and got rooms that suited Takatou and Donora's needs. Once they were ready, Takatou and Donora got on the train. During the journey, the carriage was attacked fiercely and split in half. At that moment, Takatou saw that the attack was between a sage and colonial robots. Even though it was dangerous, they weren't targeted. Not long after, the colonial robots came to the train passengers. Even though there were many passengers, the sage fighting the robots used a deadly attack without hesitation, thinking he was doing the right thing. Facing this danger, Takatou had to use his power to kill the sage. At the same time, a hero-level sage fought a pureblood vampire. Even though the sage was very strong, he couldn't beat the vampire because the vampire could regenerate herself endlessly. After the fight, Takatou talked with the colonial robots. At that moment, he wanted to know more about this world and how to go back to his own. After that, Takatou and Donora continued their journey to Hanabusa City, the only modern city in this world. When they got to the hotel, Takatou and Donora met their classmate named Tachibana. With dominating abilities, Tachibana didn't bother to participate in training. Instead, he relied on his team's experiences. Because of this, he became too confident and thought he was better than everyone else. At that moment, Tachibana even asked Donora to be his girlfriend and wanted Takatou to work for him. This made Tachibana's team jealous of Donora, even though she didn't want to be with him. After spending several days at the hotel, Donora couldn't do anything because Takatou was sleeping for a long time. Also, she felt strange things happening near the city. After that, Mokomoko realized that someone was after Donora, but she couldn't tell who the person was because the person concealed itself. Upon knowing this, Donora quickly called Takatou through the room phone. While Takatou was coming to Donora's room, he felt a dangerous presence and dealt with his ability quickly. Surprisingly, the person going after Donora was one of Tachibana's team members. After stopping the danger, Takatou told the hotel staff about a girl who was unconscious outside their room. At the same time, to avoid problems with Tachibana, Takatou and Donora left the hotel right away. On the other hand, Tachibana was exploring the ruins when he found out what was happening with his team. Upon knowing this, he didn't want Takatou and Donora to escape, so he quickly told some of his team members to catch Donora. At the hotel, Tachibana's team member immediately used her ice magic to stop them, but Takatou got rid of the ice and broke the girl's magic staff, showing that he could eliminate anything with his ability. At that moment, Takatou told the girl not to do anything if she didn't want to get hurt. But she didn't listen and tried to attack him instead. In the end, Takatou felt threatened, so he had to defend himself and killed her immediately. Even though some of his team members were defeated, Tachibana kept trying to fight Takatou. When his team failed, he called some insects to stop Takatou and Donora. At that moment, Takatou could easily gotten rid of the flying insects, but he didn't want them to fall on them after he killed them. At the same time, Tachibana thought that Takatou wouldn't be able to use his powers when surrounded by the insects. So he told the insects to attack Takatou quickly. At that moment, Takatou was disgusted by Tachibana's actions and decided to get rid of him first, which stopped the swarm of insects and other problems. After Tachibana died, his team members didn't try to fight Takatou anymore. But there were still problems in the city. Were a bunch of zombies blocking Takatou and Donora from escaping the city. It turns out Line, a vampire sage, was curious about Takato's abilities. As an eternal vampire, Line wanted to see if Takatou could defeat her, so she told an undead named Mazuyuki to try and fight him. In the middle of the city, Mazuyuki stopped the zombies and told everyone to catch Takatou and Donora. When people didn't listen, Mazuyuki threatened to make the zombies move again. Even though people were trying to catch them, Takatou didn't just wait. He said he'd get rid of anyone who came near him. To get out of this, Takatou decided to face Mazuyuki in the city center. When they met, Mazuyuki thought Takatou would sacrifice himself to save the people. But Takatou said his only goal was to get to the capital. Mazuyuki got more frustrated with Takato's attitude, so he sent his undead army to attack. But Takatou got rid of them quickly. When Mazuyuki saw his undead being defeated, he confronted Takatou alone. However, Takatou quickly got rid of him before Mazuyuki could transform to become stronger. After that, the mayor of the city, Takanashi, came to Takatou and said he wasn't involved in what happened. But he admitted he couldn't do anything because Line was behind everything. At the same time, Tachibana's former members, Euphemia, warned against getting involved with Takatou anymore. Euphemia had seen enough to think that Takatou was more dangerous than even a sage or mythical creature. Even though Line knew how strong Takatou was, she didn't give up on her plan to fight him. She then used her regenerative power to make lots of clones that wouldn't be afraid of dying. After that, she sent these clones to attack the area around the city at high speed, causing a lot of damage. At first, Takatou didn't notice the object that falling nearby until Donora told him she saw a woman in a red dress. Upon hearing this, Takanashi figured out that the object was a clone made by Line. Seeing the danger to his city, Takanashi helped Takatou to stop her attack. After realizing that Line's clones didn't attack the same place twice and avoided it, Takanashi then teleported Takatou and Donora, where the clone had not yet appeared. Shortly after, when the clone approached, Takatou got rid of the clone quickly when it was about to reach their place. Surprisingly, Takatou's power didn't just affect the clones but also Line's real body, leaving behind only a child with her personality. After the city peaceful again, Takatou and Donora continued their journey. During their journey, Takatou slept soundly and not disturbed at all, even though they were passing through mountain roads. At that time, Takatou found himself in a dream about his past. It was about when a teacher named Asaka applied for a job at a research facility. During the interview, Asaka felt uneasy when asked if she was willing to risk her life for the job. She felt something was wrong and wanted to leave right away. But they didn't let her go and took her to an underground room instead. Before starting her job, a researcher told Asaka about her tasks. One of them was to watch over someone called Alpha Omega, but the researcher didn't know much about it. Would he only know that Alpha Omega was dangerous, because it could harm people just by thinking about it? After the explanation, the researcher left Asaka alone in a room behind an iron door. After that, she found a house, and to her surprise, she found a young boy inside. Feeling sorry for him, she took him outside and played with him. From then on, Asaka took care of the boy and even gave him the name Takatou. This brought them closer, creating a bond like that of a mother and son. In the present, their journey was interrupted by a landslide, so Donora immediately waking Takatou up. At the same time, they saw a group of dragons getting ready to attack. Realizing the danger, Takatou quickly got rid of the dragon. Shortly after, another dragon came and said that Takatou had passed a test and tried to left. Confused by this, Takatou asked the dragon to stop. With fear, the dragon changed into a girl named Attila and said she was testing him for the dragon race. According to Attila, Takatou wanted to meet the Swordmaster, even though he didn't know him or have any reason to meet him. But when Takatou heard the Swordmaster was like a sage, he decided to find him to ask about going back to his world. As they got ready to go meet the Swordmaster, Attila offered to guide them to the capital. But first, they had to deal with swordsmen who were taking an exam. Soon after, the Swordmaster appeared suddenly and ordered everyone to fight. He said half of them had to be defeated, or else anyone who tried to run away would fail. This made Takatou, who didn't want to join at first, decide to take part in the exam. Luckily, a swordsman named Rick quickly protected him, so Takatou and Donora didn't have to fight directly. After the fight ended, only a few participants were left, and they were then directed to a tower where the evil king was sealed. Even though he was sealed, the evil king still emitted evil aura, and nobody could beat him because time moved slower around him. So, the Swordmaster stayed there to protect everyone. However, Takatou accidentally killed the evil king inside the barrier when he felt its evil presence. Even though he did this, Takatou decided to keep it a secret and only told Donora about it. After that, they focused on the exam again. As they left the tower, another participant named Lineal faced a lot of problems because of his bad luck. Lineal kept getting caught in traps and had to fight strong enemies. When Lineal was in trouble in a room, Rick went to check on him and found Teresa, a girl who was a knight under the Holy King but had to retake the exam because she had killed too many people. At that moment, Rick had to fight with her, but Teresa was also a threat to Takatou, so he immediately got rid of her. Shortly after, as they descended to the next floor, they had the chance to rest in a safe area. After hearing about many participants being killed, they decided to split up for safety. But because there weren't enough rooms, Takatou and Donora ended up sharing one. Without hesitation, Takatou changed his clothes and went to sleep, while Donora worried and thought about many things. In the room next to theirs, Lineal got a new crystal and used it immediately. Suddenly, a goddess that reincarnated him into the world appeared. On the other hand, there was a battle between two wise men, one of whom was named Aoi. During the battle, Aoi could mimic all the abilities of her opponent. Even in a sword duel, Aoi remained unbeatable. After she won, Aoi was told to target Takatou next. Accidentally, Aoi met Hanakawa, who was after she defeating the sage. That night, while Takatou was asleep, he started talking in his sleep and accidentally hugged Donora. This situation made Mokomoko get stuck on the wall while trying to secretly watch them. When Takatou woke up, he immediately freed Mokomoko, which accidentally destroying the tower's system that used to collect the souls of the dead. At the same time, Aoi fought a dragon and used her power to control reality to defeat it. After everything settled down, Aoi quickly took Hanakawa to meet Takatou. Meanwhile, inside the tower, Takatou and Donora had made a lot of progress and were already halfway through because Takatou disabled all the puzzles and traps in the tower. But the wizard who made the tower thought Takatou was cheating. Even though Takatou said he just wanted to leave, the wizard wouldn't let him go because the tower was keeping the evil king sealed. Upon hearing this, Takatou had to get rid of the wizard, even though he didn't want to. At the same time, Rick and Lineal met again in a room. But this time, Lineal wasn't injured because he had better equipment. As Takatou and Donora went up to the next floor, they saw other participants in the exam fighting with swords. At first, it seemed like they were evenly matched because they were all strong. But then, one of them decided not to use a sword, which gave them an advantage. At that moment, Takatou didn't want to get involved, but the fight went on for a long time, so he asked if they could pass through. Upon hearing this, the white-haired girl named Theodicea agreed, but her enemies asked his members to attack Takatou instead. In the end, Takatou had to defend himself and get rid of all of them. After learning Takatou's abilities, Theodicea apologized and proposed working together with him. She told him about her mission to find her missing sister, and her reason for coming there was because she heard her friend was being detained. Takatou agreed to help, but he wanted her to rely less on his strength and focus only on finding her sister. Later, when everyone gathered in the main hall, there was an emergency because something was causing trouble around the tower. After that, the tower was destroyed by someone who was part of Demon Army. With the tower gone, the barrier became weaker, making it more likely for the evil king to escape. To protect humanity, the Sword Master told everyone in the exam to fight against the demon threat. But Takatou tried to leave secretly because he didn't want to get involved. However, the demon was too strong, and slowly, everyone who fought against it started to lose. Even though they kept trying to fight back with all their powers, nothing they did could defeat the demon. At the same time, Lineal got a crystal unexpectedly, and when he used it, it summoned the goddess who had brought him again. At first, she seemed nice, but unexpectedly she joined forces with the demons. They planned to break the barrier that was holding the evil king captive. This happened because the goddess was in love with the evil king. On the other hand, after going down the stairs, Theodicea found the room where her friend was locked up. At that moment, her friend's condition was concerning because his magical powers were being drained continuously. After Takatou saw what was happening, he decided to go back up the stairs and act according to the situation, while Theodicea wanted to get revenge for her friend. At the same time, the evil goddess started destroying the core of the barrier to release the seal completely. Unexpectedly, she found the lifeless body of the evil king inside, which made her very sad and unstable. While she was vulnerable, a monster suddenly attacked the goddess. Even though her followers tried to help her, the goddess got very angry and started causing chaos around her. At the same time, Theodicea immediately killed the sword master while he was distracted, as revenge for her friend. When the demons saw the evil king die, they decided to wipe out all of humanity. Knowing this, Takatou told Donora and Theodicea to come closer, so they could fight the enemy together more easily. At the same time, Aoi and Hanakawa arrived at the place. Even though Aoi wanted to know where Takatou was right away, she realized that they needed to deal with the current problem first. Luckily, Aoi could tell how strong someone was. When she saw that the sword master had been defeated and Rick had taken his place, Aoi guessed that Rick would do well in battle with his holy sword. After they defeated the evil goddess, Aoi looked for Takatou again. But when she saw how powerful Takatou was, she decided not to confront him anymore, because Aoi thought Takatou was too dangerous. After the situation calmed down, Takatou stated that he would head to the capital. Since their goals were the same, Rick invited Takatou to go together. But Takatou refused the invitation because he just wanted to be alone with Donora. Meanwhile, on the bus from before, a student named Shinozaki, she suddenly rose again as an artificial human. To prevent her death, she had to stop the functions in the human body and find materials to restore her body again. Not long after, Takatou remembered his past. Back then, Asaka took care of him by cooking meals, even though her cooking wasn't great. Despite the food not being the best, Takatou still ate it because he thought it would be rude not to eat a meal made by a woman. Which, Asaka also taught Takatou basic things. Shortly after, there was a robot that brought groceries regularly, so Asaka used it to get things for Takatou's learning and entertainment. After a few days like this, Asaka started to worry about whether she could keep going. But surprisingly, she managed to survive for a month and was rewarded with a lot of money. With the money she got, Asaka decided to take a day off. She then treated herself by eating at a restaurant, going shopping, and staying in a fancy hotel. But then, she suddenly couldn't remember anything, and she found herself locked up in a prison cell. It turned out she had been kidnapped by an international group while she was unconscious. While Takatou waited for Asaka's return, he felt increasingly lonely. Determined to locate her, he came up with a plan to use his helper robot's assistance. Despite the facility's exterior door being inaccessible from inside, Takatou faced no opposition from the researchers, allowing him to leave freely. Using his ability, Takatou bypassed the security measures and dealt with anyone who tried to stop him. His main goal was to free Asaka so she could come back. After this experience, Asaka felt unable to quit her job. Though she didn't commit to staying forever, she felt compelled to help Takatou in any way she could, fearing what might happen if he was neglected. Back in the present, Takatou and Danora finally arrived at the capital. But their vehicle was surrounded by gate guards, suspicious because it belonged to the Eternal Army. Takatou then explained that Mayor Takanasi from Hanabusa City had provided the car and revealed their status as candidates for the position of sage. Initially doubtful, the guards relented when Takatou showed them the necklace from the previous test, which a gift from Rick, the Holy Night King. However, one of them remained skeptical and challenged Danora to a fight. Although Danora suggested avoiding conflict, Takatou encouraged her to face the challenger, while he promised immediate help if she was in danger. With this assurance, Danora agreed and quickly defeated her opponent using techniques learned from Mokomoko. As a result, the gate guards began to trust Takatou and Danora, and they were allowed to enter the city. Meanwhile, Aoi, deeply affected by the tower incident, wanted to distance himself from anything related to Takatou. On the other hand, during the encounter with the king, a student caused trouble but found themselves powerless against the king's ability to weaken their powers. After that, the king assigned all students to defeat the evil king in the underworld. At the meeting, Danora tried to talk to her classmates. Though they had previously left Takatou and Danora, their classmates didn't see it as a mistake. While Takatou didn't mind, Danora, despite understanding their reasons, still felt some annoyance. Nevertheless, they decided to work together and let go of any lingering hard feelings. Among the selected candidates were two female students who knew about Takatou's abilities. They were Carol from the institution and Kyoko from the laboratory. Initially assigned to watch Takatou, they now wanted to support him in the midst of growing complexities. Not long after, Danora and the others got ready for the mission to defeat the monsters living in the underworld. Together with Rick, they set out on this mission. At the same time, Takatou joined another team led by David for the same task. When they faced the monsters, Danora demonstrated her skills, supported by her new gear, which gave her more flexibility in battle, making her just as strong as her teammates. Although Takatou hadn't shown his full power yet, his ability for sensing danger let him predict the monster's actions, helping him dodge and attack simultaneously. Later that afternoon, Hanako-wa and Lute, a former follower of the evil king, wandered around the capital, seeking the evil king's younger sister. They needed information to access the lower room, a task unfamiliar to Lute, who had never been to a bar before. However, while chatting with the bartender, Lute accidentally gathered plenty of information. Shortly after, Shinozaki unexpectedly appeared in the bar and confronted one of her classmates, while declaring revenge at them for being abandoned. This disturbance caught Sion's attention, prompting her to talk to Hanako-wa and ask about Takatou. In return, Sion offered help on entering the underworld. At the same time, Shinozaki's presence in the city disturbed Takatou's classmate named Suriyama, leading him to attack. However, the king's suppression of gift powers in his territory left Suriyama powerless, resulting in his quick defeat. Shortly after, in the depths of the underworld, Hanako-wa and Lute finally found the evil king's younger sister named Mana. Despite being sealed by her brother before, Mana still deeply cared for him. On the other hand, Shinozaki aimed to break the barrier, weakening the power of gifts. Sneaking into the palace, she attacked the king. As the barrier faded, Shinozaki went straight to confront Suriyama once again. In their fight, Suriyama's power surged compared to their last encounter. Each of his blows momentarily stopped Shinozaki, seeming to give him the upper hand. However, it turned out that Shinozaki was still holding back. When serious, she could easily defeat her opponent. While Takatou and Danora strolled leisurely, deliberately trying to attract their enemies, they faced the threat of a sniper. Initially ignoring the danger, Takatou immediately took action when Danora became the target, shielding her and apprehending the attackers. Meanwhile, Lute revealed the truth about the evil king to Mana. Feeling remorseful for involving Hanako-wa, Lute handed over the seal key, believing Mana wouldn't harm him due to his role in her master's demise. At the same time, the man who had previously threatened Takatou had the ability to summon elements from his original realm. But Takatou was already harbored resentment towards him. As time passed, every night Shionozaki attacked her friends who were alone this time. She targeted a male student known for his cooking skills. In contrast, Mana, despite knowing about her brother's death, remained calm, seemingly accepting the situation. Before seeking revenge, she contemplated ways to bring her brother back. Although she didn't know how, Mana immediately made Lute a sacrifice, as some of her brother's DNA was contained in Lute's body. On the other hand, upon realizing that Danora and Takatou spent more time together, Danora's friend questioned if she had romantic feelings for Takatou. Hearing this, Danora immediately clarified that their bond was not romantic, but she still saw Takatou when he was not around. Shortly after, their situation worsened when Si-yeon ordered all students to eliminate each other until only one remained. At the same time, Takatou faced challenges as he falling from a cliff. Meanwhile, Si-yeon announced a deadly competition among the candidates to choose the new sage. She even threatened severe consequences for those who refused or tried to escape. Many students opposed this trial, some even considering harming Si-yeon. However, despite being attacked, Si-yeon could revive because her level kept increasing every second. On the other hand, Takatou immediately used his powers to stop himself from falling, preventing a fatal accident. At the same time, Mana started a process to bring back her brother, causing changes in the environment as her body underwent transformations. Upon seeing this, Hanakawa felt compelled to run away, reluctantly leaving Lute behind. Meanwhile, Theodicea followed her sister's journey to the capital, driven by Rizel's strong desire, who is Line's original body, to meet Takatou. On the other hand, when Hanakawa was chased by Mana, he was coincidentally saved by Takatou, who then asked for a way to go back up and requested Hanakawa to escort him. Meanwhile, as Si-yeon ordered students to fight to the death, they began attacking each other as instructed. One student, who could see into the future, waited for Takatou by the elevator. As predicted, the student suddenly died after encountering Takatou. Meanwhile, one of the students named Mei had a secret special ability. She waited for someone to boast about their skills, causing them to feel hopeless as they couldn't surpass her. Although not physically strong, she could defeat her enemies using a supernatural power given by the cat god. Shortly after, Mei appeared near Takatou and Hanakawa, planning to attack them with her deadly strikes. However, Takatou chose not to harm her. Instead, he disabled Mei's power, making her powerless. Realizing she was weakened, Mei got scared and quickly ran away from them. Meanwhile, inside the fortress, Shionozaki and Kyoko engaged in a fierce battle, where Danora silently observed her friends fighting, feeling uneasy about the situation. Just as she thought about leaving, she found herself surrounded by guardian spirits controlled by her classmate named Mikochi. It seemed that Mikochi had hidden her true power, that she had claimed it was only numerical, but now she revealed herself as a necromancer. With this newfound power, Mikochi aimed to take control of Danora's guardian spirits for herself. Under the influence of the necromancer's abilities, Mokomoko was quickly absorbed into Mikochi's body. Additionally, Danora's armor suddenly disappeared as Mokomoko lost control over it. Luckily, Takatou was nearby. When he saw that Danora was in trouble, he acted quickly to save her. Meanwhile, Shionozaki and Kyoko continued their intense fight. Sensing the danger, Kyoko decided to set off a powerful explosion. At the same time, Takatou anticipated this and shielded his companions behind him to keep them safe. As a result, Shionozaki suffered severe injuries, with 60% of her body destroyed. To fully recover, she then used the dragon's restoration, transforming her into a dragon without hesitation. After regaining her strength, Shionozaki immediately set out to avenge her fallen friend, gathering a strong force to support her. Despite being ordered to retreat, Shionozaki insisted on fighting Takatou, who she detected as Alpha Omega. At that moment, Takatou had no choice but to kill her. At the same time, Hanakawa, unsure of what was happening, urged Takatou to leave and draw out Si-yeon. However, Si-yeon suddenly appeared before them. Without hesitation, Takatou immobilized her ankle, causing Si-yeon to fall and confused. Without any intention of talking, Takatou pressured Si-yeon for information on how to return to his original world. When she didn't respond, Takatou continued to immobilize her until she gave him the answers he needed. Instead of responding, Sion chose to escape using teleportation. But Takatou could attack her wherever she went. Additionally, he could also attack someone near his target. Faced with this, Sion reluctantly returned to answer Takatou's questions. At that moment, she explained that the two worlds were currently separated, so returning immediately wasn't possible. However, it was still possible to return if they had the right coordinates and enough energy. Unfortunately, the required energy could only be obtained from the stones held by the sage. With this information, Takatou and his friends continued their journey, while Sion, despite causing them trouble, was allowed to live. As Sion prepared to leave, something unexpected blocked her way. She was suddenly engulfed by Mana, who intended to use her as a sacrifice to bring back her brother. At that moment, Mana not only consumed Sion but also spread destruction throughout the city. Fortunately, Takatou and his friends arrived just in time, where Takatou took down a bishop suspected of being involved in Mana's resurrection. When Mana demanded Hanakawa to bring her to Takatou. However, Takatou was already facing her, so Mana intended to kill him. But in the end, Mana herself was killed because Takatou could sense her intent to kill him. After successfully getting rid of the danger, they headed to the rooftop to reach the flying vehicle. But because there weren't enough seats for everyone, some couldn't get on. However, Mokomoko suggested another plan to ensure everyone could leave the city. She adjusted Donora's armor so it could fly, carrying Takatou with her. As they left the city, Takatou planned to gather energy to go back to his own world. Since others wanted to go with him, they all decided to travel together. And so, the anime came to an end. Moral lesson from the story: always check your console battery before dealing with dragons or your enemies, because you never know when you'll need a quick escape or a distraction.